Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming along to our event this afternoon. We're going to be starting very shortly, and so we'd like to invite you all to come over and take your seats over here.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, Deputy Minister. My name is Robert Fry. I'm the Deputy High Commissioner Deputy High Commissioner for Canada here in the United Kingdom. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all to Canada House. Bienvenue tout le monde à la Maison du Canada. On parle dans les deux langues ici. We have two official languages in Canada, so we always try and in the UK, it's a bit, we probably don't give each language equal value, but I wanted to at least welcome you en français. Dobry den to our colleagues. I laskavo prosimo. I hope I said that right. Good afternoon and welcome. Today is a special day as we gather here together on the eve of the important Ukraine Recovery Conference to hear about Ukraine's ambitions and plans to move towards renewable energy. And it's really a great pleasure to have all of you here today and our partners in the PPC. In particular, to transition away from polluting coal power, the largest global source of greenhouse gas emissions driving climate change today, for us, this discussion in the midst of everything else going on in Ukraine, we thought it was particularly important. It's incredibly impressive that the Ukraine ministry is putting such enormous efforts in the midst of a brutal invasion, war, let's be honest, to radically transform their energy system in the midst of everything else they're dealing with. So Deputy Minister, I just said it to him personally, but I also wanted to tell you in front of everyone, we here express our deep admiration for the path that you are on, you and some of your fellow mayors who I met and your colleagues from the NGO community, for this incredible work that you're doing despite all the challenges you're facing. Coal-fired power plants produce almost 40% of global electricity today, which means that accelerating the phase-outs is one of the most important steps the international community can take to tackle climate change and meet the temperature goals of the Paris Agreement. But in a world of volatile energy prices and supplies, it's also a vital step in ensuring energy security. And when I was speaking to some of the mayors, that is one of the things that they said, despite everything going on, they've learned that making that shift is something that will help in the long run, considering some of the challenges they had over the past winter. It's a transformation that Canada wholeheartedly supports, and it's a journey that we share as our legislated net zero commitment, price on carbon, and clean electricity regulations put us on track to end unabated coal power by 2030. In fact, and I'm proud to say that the last coal-fired plant in the province of Alberta in Canada, the largest in Canada, was scheduled to close this year, which is 7 years ahead of schedule. So we're quite proud of that. Canada is strongly committed to ambitious action and global leadership on climate change. And we are really proud to co-chair the Powering Past Coal Alliance with our UK colleagues and friends here. It brings together all levels of government, businesses, organization, and I know there are many of you represented in this room, united in taking action to advance the transition away from traditional coal power generation. As of November 2022, the PPCA has grown to more than 165 members, including over 30 financial institutions representing more than $17 trillion in assets, which is really impressive. Last year at COP27, Canada announced $5 million for the Southeast Asia Energy Transition Partnership to support coal phase out in Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. And we announced $5 million for the OECD to support its clean energy finance and investment mobilization program, which helps emerging economies attract private sector investment in clean energy. Through our engagement with the PPCA and beyond, we are doing everything we can to help the world go from coal to clean, as we say. I'm thus eager to hear more about Ukraine's plans to transition towards clean energy in what are, as I said, uniquely difficult and challenging conditions. So thanks very much, and I wish you a great discussion. Dziękuję. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those warm words of welcome. I'm Julia Skorupska. I'm the head of the Powering Past Coal Alliance Secretariat. You've heard a little bit about the Powering Past Coal Alliance from the Deputy High Commissioner this afternoon. We're really delighted to be co-hosting this event with the government of Ukraine this afternoon. The government of Ukraine joined the Powering Past Coal Alliance in 2021, before the Russian invasion. Back then, it was a breakthrough. Ukraine had the third largest coal fleet in Europe after Germany and Poland. And by joining the Powering Past Coal Alliance and moving the phase-out date back from 2050 to 2035, That was a real breakthrough moment. Obviously, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has severely damaged their energy system. I was reading this morning that the latest estimates are over $10 billion of damage and more than 12 million families and homes left without electricity. So I think that what's amazing is that the Ukrainian government and our Ukrainian partners are here this afternoon to say that they remain just as committed to the move from coal to clean, to phasing out coal, because they see it as the best way to rebuild a secure energy system and the best way to provide a great economic future for their towns and communities. So we are really delighted to be able to be here with them to present this and to call on the international community, on all of our members, to be working with Ukraine to deliver this transition. We're going to start our event this afternoon with a couple of words of welcome from our co-chairs. So as the Deputy High Commissioner mentioned, we're co-chaired by the Canadian Minister, Mr. Stephen Guilbeault, who is the Minister for the Environment and Climate Change in Canada, and by the UK Minister, Mr. Graham Stewart, who's the Minister for Energy Security and Net Zero. They unfortunately can't be here today, but they've sent us a few words of welcome.
As we gather in solidarity around the Ukrainian Recovery Conference, it is my great pleasure to come together with Ukraine and the United Kingdom under the banner of Powering Past Coal Alliance. Canada strongly condemns Russia's illegal, unjustified, and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. We've witnessed the impacts on Ukraine's electricity grid and the risk to its nuclear energy facilities. The lack of reliable power is harming the daily lives of Ukrainians. The war is also taking a terrible toll on the local ecosystem, harming forests, contaminating farm water supplies, and leaving explosive debris underground and toxic gases in the air. Russia's aggression is making the climate crisis worse at a critical moment when the world needs to come together. And it has laid bare the energy security risks caused by reliance on fossil fuels. Remarkably, amid all of this chaos and hardship, Ukraine remains committed to ending coal power. I'm here today to proudly stand beside Ukraine as it reconfirms its 2035 coal phase-out date. I welcomed Ukraine as a member of the alliance at the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP26. And just last December in Montreal, I signed a memorandum of understanding with Ukraine at COP15 Biodiversity Conference to increase cooperation on climate action, environmental protection, and nature conservation. As a close ally to Ukraine, Canada can also provide the expertise and solutions that will help Ukraine build back a cleaner electricity grid. Canada's electricity sector was heavily dependent on coal only 20 years ago. Today, we and other alliance members stand ready to help Ukraine with its pathway away from coal once reconstruction efforts begin. Beyond Ukraine, we're seeing excellent progress on coal phase-out across Europe. Coal and gas generations were down 11% compared to last year. And for the first time in the EU's history, renewables overtook fossil fuels, rising to 40% of electricity. All of this despite the sudden loss of oil and gas from Russia. Phasing out coal is clearly one of the most important steps towards achieving the Paris Agreement climate goals. Through the PPCA, members like Ukraine are answering the call. Let's make 2023 the year that countries around the world step forward and say no to new unabated coal power. And most importantly, the year the world agrees once and for all to accelerate the phase out of unabated coal power this December in Dubai at COP28. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm so sorry I can't be with you in person, but as co-chair of the Powering Past Coal Alliance, I wanted to welcome you to this special event. And can I extend that particularly to our Ukrainian friends? 16 months after Putin launched his brutal, unprovoked war, your determination to defend your country is inspiring and demands our continuing support. We've seen the relentless attacks on power plants, water supplies, and most recently, the Kakhovka dam attacks, which have caused more than $10 billion worth of damage to energy infrastructure. But amidst all this horror, Ukraine has stayed committed to a clean energy transition, moving away from unabated coal power. In the face of such adversity, that is remarkable, but also smart. By rebuilding in a sustainable, resilient way, Ukraine can safeguard its power supply for decades to come and reduce its dependence on fossil fuels and despots like Putin. We fully support you. We're already sharing expertise in the just transition of coal mining regions so they can find new drivers of growth and employment. And there's a visionary plan for towns in Western Ukraine that you'll hear more about shortly. That's also why we're working with international allies on a wide range of other programs too. Finally, I hope you find this afternoon's panel insightful and that you leave the Recovery Conference with a clear idea of our determination to keep supporting Ukraine, whatever it takes. Thank you.
And we're very honoured to have here with us this afternoon to welcome us from the Ukrainian side, the Deputy Minister, Yaroslav Demchenko. Your Excellency.
Dear friends, dear participants, partners, truly friends of Ukraine. The year has passed since the previous recovery conference, the year of battles and missile terror against civilian and energy infrastructure in our country. We withstood it owing the heroism of our energy specialists in Ukraine and owing to our tireless support of your support from the UK, Canada, Germany, and all other countries. And this is really, really important support in kind, political, and solidarity. This is really important. And as colleagues has mentioned, we are all shocked by the recent Russian war crime, the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam. Really difficult even imagine how it's possible in our century, how it is possible in the center of Europe to have such terroristic attack and destroy lives of our people. Ukraine is still carrying out of rescue operation in flooded regions. This is really, really difficult for us. We should all understand that this is typical for Russia to do such crimes, to do such actions. And Russia, this is a terroristic state. And Russia, we see that try to destroy everything and try to keep control. And they try to use energy as a weapon. And they try to use our energy facilities as a weapon also. The biggest in Europe nuclear power plant was occupied more than a year ago. The biggest in Europe nuclear power plant, more than a year ago. 6 times we had blackouts. 6 times we were very close to the Fukushima scenario. The problem that it could happen because of missile attack. The problem that it could happen because of this terrible, terrible missile attack, drone attacks, artillery each day. Even just an hour ago in the capital, we had again this alarm system, and people should go to shelters and try to survive their lives. But the situation even more difficult because in coal mines territories, where the war started not just only more than a year ago. This war started years ago when Crimea was occupied, when Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast were occupied by Russia. They occupied our coal mines regions. And this is really difficult for our economy This is difficult for our territories. This is difficult for our people, because before war and during period of war, these territories have really huge challenges and threats because of attacks, because of occupation, because of mining of these territories. And of course, at the level of government, we should understand what does it mean rebuild Ukraine back better. Ukraine should be clean country, should be country with sustainable, affordable, and resilient energy power sector. It means that this power sector shouldn't be oriented on fossil fuels, shouldn't be oriented on coal. And this is really, it's true, because our people now fighting not just only with Russian troops, they fighting with Russian-oriented imperialistic agenda, oriented on fossil fuels, oriented on non-green transition future of our region. And this is really, really important, that we should understand that Ukraine could be and will be European energy hub. We have everything for replacing coal-fired generation with renewables, with bioenergy, with nuclear. A lot of new technologies we have right now in energy sector, in different industries. Look, your mobile telephone, now you could do everything using mobile telephone. The future of energy during 10 years, 12 years will change. We will have more hydrogen, we will have more biomethane, probably we will have some renaissance in nuclear. It will be, but for sure no future for coal and no future for fossil fuels. That's why in our energy strategy, which we developed together with the UK and International Energy Agency, we identify that in Ukraine, we could provide these coal phase-out activities till 2035. And this is really important to understand people in Ukraine, politicians, business, that this decision was taken, to understand that their business should be changed. And they have quite good period of time, change doing business, replace fossil fuels, replace coal in their business, find for coal mine regions more sustainable business, more sustainable and green business, to create new jobs, create new opportunities for local business, for these people. And this is really important agenda. And with support of international community, with support of our partners, Germany, Canadian, the UK, from other partners, we for sure will have this green future of Ukraine. And also, I think that I should say some words about our regions. Missile attacks, artillery, drones, a lot of people now refugees. It's difficult even here we have representative of cities from civil society organization. They will explain how to live in such conditions, how difficult think about green future, any future. We think just only about victory right now, for sure. But we understand that in this region, we could have really good sustainable future. And just transition should start even during this tough period of time. We should develop sustainable plans, comprehensive plan of recovery, green recovery, create new businesses, create new jobs, and of course, communities, local municipalities, with national governments, with support of international partners, for sure they will find this approach, how to be more successful, how to be more sustainable, and how to be more pro-Ukrainian, because Ukraine, this is a really green country, because significant capacity in renewables, wind, solar, hydro, green hydrogen, in thermal energy. So this is a really green country, with agriculture, green also, and with energy. So amazing future after our victory, we think we will have in Ukraine. So thank you so much, everyone. I know that you contributed a lot for our victory, in-kind political support, financial support. This is really important for all of us, for each Ukrainians. And please do everything, send proper messages for our politicians that this green recovery should be implemented, that coal phase out should be implemented in Ukraine. And this is really important messages for our politicians, for our business. Change your mind, because in Ukraine, change your approach to do business, change your political vision, and be more oriented on green recovery. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Demchenkov. I just wanted to take a moment to pause on that amazing announcement that Ukraine is recommitting to the 2035 phase-out date, despite all of the attacks on Ukraine's economy. And to echo the minister's words that obviously international support will be really important to help deliver that transition, to build back greener. International support has been really important for maintaining vital services during the attack. As we've heard, it's going to be even more important as we get to the reconstruction phase to rebuild a carbon neutral infrastructure in Ukraine. So I'm really delighted that we have with us here today, Mr. Harry Boyd Carpenter, the Managing Director for Climate Strategy and Delivery at the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, to talk a little bit about the work that they're doing in Ukraine.
Thank you very much, Julia. I just actually want to begin by honoring the courage and the suffering of Ukrainian people. Ukraine is very deep in EBRD's heart, and we want that support and that solidarity to take concrete form. We've committed that over 2022 and 2023, we would provide 3 billion euros of support, and we're already halfway through that. Much of that has come in the form of liquidity support for the energy sector, both Naftogaz and Ukrenergo. And I should say a word about Ukrenergo, because this is an energy event. And before I took this job, I was the director at EBRD responsible for our investments in the Ukrainian energy sector. And I would like to say, after 4 years of negotiating with Ukrenergo, anyone who thinks that they can be smarter and tougher than them is in for a bad surprise. I also want to echo some of the comments the previous speakers made, the Deputy Minister and the Deputy High Commissioner, about the significance of a coal exit commitment in these terrible circumstances. That's a statement not just about how you want your energy sector to look, it's also a statement about how you want the economy to look, and indeed about what sort of country you are and will be. And it's a very, very powerful statement. What does it mean for the future? Well, the contours of an energy sector that exits coal are clear. For Ukraine, it's an energy sector built on the existing nuclear and hydro foundations, but then overwhelmingly reliant on wind and solar and biomass. And absolutely, Ukraine has huge resources in all of those areas. And I'll just say a few brief words about the financing of those projects, because of course, I work for a bank and that's what banks are here for. There'll be public sector money for sure. And the public sector money will need to go particularly to nuclear, to assuring the safety of the fleet, and also to the grids and rebuilding the grids and making sure that there's a network in place that can absorb all of that reconfigured, decentralized renewable system. But there will also be a huge investment wave in renewables. And Ukraine actually has a great success story to tell here, because before the war, there was an extraordinary boom in renewables, 5 gigawatts of privately financed renewable energy. That was an imperfect sector. I was deeply involved in it and it was not perfect. The tariffs weren't perfect, the structures weren't perfect, the market wasn't perfect. But transition is difficult. Transition is messy. It was also a rapid, privately financed development of 5 gigawatts of renewables. And that's the template for Ukraine in the future. It will be a much improved market, it will be a much improved structure. But actually, the bulk of the financing will come from the private sector, and we're convinced that it will be there and it will be enabled, and it will be built on 3 fundamental pillars. The first will be the commitment to a green future that you've heard restated. And if it's restated in these circumstances, then it really matters. The second will be market reforms. We need a well-functioning, transparent, clearly delineated market. And the third will be integration with the European electricity system, which is already well underway. Built on those 3 pillars, Ukraine really will have, and I saw the title of the latest energy strategy, invincible energy. And at EBRD, we very much look forward to unlocking the finance for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We're now going to hear from some of the local leaders who are delivering this transition. When Ukraine joined the Powering Past Coal Alliance, there were over 40,000 people employed in state-owned mining companies or in sectors linked to the coal industry. There are 25 cities across Ukraine, cities and districts where coal is one of the major features in the economy. So we're really delighted to have with us here today one of the mayors of these cities. We've got Mr. Andrzej Zalewski with us, who's been mayor of Czerwonogród since 2015. Czerwonogród is in the Lviv region, and it's a town which has been highly dependent on coal and employment in the coal mines. And it's one of the 2 pilot communities which has been selected to be part of a Just Transition project, which is funded by the German government. Mr. Zalewski will speak in Ukrainian, and we're really glad that Konstantin Krynitsky is going to provide some translation for him.
Дуже дякую. Шановні пані та панове, мені дуже приємно виступати перед такою поважною аудиторією.
Thank you, everyone. It's very pleasant for me to be able to speak with such a distinct audience.
Чому ми розпочали процес справедливої трансформації?
Why did we start the Just Transition process?
Тому що ми хочемо стати містом чистої, сталої енергії.
Because we want to become a town of clean and sustainable energy.
Україна підписала співпрацю з Європейським Союзом і до 35-го року має зробити певні кроки.
Ukraine became the EU candidate, and until 2035, it needs to implement some commitments.
З 12 шахт у нас лишилося 6.
From 12 mines, we are left with 6.
Це понад 6,5 тисяч працівників.
It's more than 6,000 coal miners, coal workers.
З них 1,500 зараз на війні.
From them, 1,500 are in a war. They were drafted.
Багато з них вже повернулися назавжди додому в домовині.
And many of them died and came to Czerwonogród.
І ми маємо подбати про їхні сім'ї, якщо ці підприємства закриються.
And we need to provide for their families if these coal mines will be shut down.
Тому я дякую Міністерству енергетики, компанії ГІС, які вибрали нас і допомагають нам реалізувати даний проект.
So I thank the Ukrainian government, Ministry of Energy and GIZ for selecting our community and helping to provide for a just transition.
Ми розпочали з спілкування з людьми. з консультаціями на різні теми, яким вони бачать подальший розвиток міста.
We started with talking with people, with consultations, with different stakeholders to understand how they see their future.
Спочатку люди не розуміли, навіщо стільки спілкування, адже і так все відомо.
At first, people didn't understand why there was so much talks, so much conversations, because everything is kind of clear.
Але раз від разу всі почали розуміти, що під час цього спілкування формується команда однодумців і народжується дуже багато цікавих ідей.
But very quickly, people understood that in these conversations, there was created partnerships, some bonds, and some ideas, new ideas to implement.
Опитування, яке провела Києво-Могилянська бізнес-школа, показало, що 90% опитаних знають уже, що шахти будуть закриті, і треба думати про інше майбутнє для міста.
The survey done by Kyiv-Mohyla Business School provided information that more than 90% of people, they know that the coal mines will be shut down in the future. They understand it.
Найбільше їх цікавить два питання. Де їм знайти роботу і зробити побільше відпочинкових зон, атракцій, щоб вони не хотіли виїжджати з даної території, яка їм дуже подобається.
And people have two main questions. What to do with employment? What are the employment opportunities in the future? And recreational activities. How can people stay in the community? What needs to be done for people not to go out of Червоноград?
Тому перед нами завдання – чим замістити шахти.
So we have a task ahead of ourselves, how to replace coal mines.
Тому ми розпочали розробку плану просторового планування для того, щоб побачити, які в нас є вільні території, де ми можемо розмістити інші підприємства, чи інших інвесторів, які готові будуть зайти, бо тут є велика кількість потенційної робочої сили.
So we started creating a plan of special development to understand what kind of territories do we have for new enterprises, because there are more opportunities for people for employment and to providing these new jobs.
Ми розробили проект індустріального парку на 80 гектарів, плюс ще 20 гектарів території, яка є шахти, для потенційних інвесторів.
And we developed a concept of the creation of an industrial park of the scale, which is 80 hectares, with 20 hectares from the territory of the proposed coal mine.
Ми підшукали понад 110 гектарів земель, які вже не будуть використовуватися в СГ, які можуть піти під станції сонячних панелей.
And we found territories, lands that won't be used for the agriculture, so they can be used for solar generation, for solar panels.
Наступного року дві компанії пообіцяли розпочати будівництво 2 вітрових електростанцій.
And next year, two companies decided and gave the commitment to start the creation of 2 wind turbine plants.
І для нас є актуально, якби, це наша така маленька мрія, знайшлися інвестори, які готові були відкрити в нас фабрику з випуску сонячних панелей і завод по випуску теплових насосів.
And it's very important to us to find some investors who will commit to opening new plants for the creation of solar panels and heat pumps.
І, можливо, супутніх товарів для вітрової енергетики, для обслуговування, тому що це розхідники, які будуть дуже важливі.
And maybe some other companies for the creation of supplementary materials for wind generation.
Тому що інженерно-технічний персонал шахт міг би мати застосування, і ми би втримали цих людей.
Because coal miners, they're highly technically skilled people, and creating this kind of technical jobs can help to keep these people in the community and provide work for them.
Адже коли було опитування, вони сказали, що їм легше перейти на іншу фабрику, завод, вони краще себе будуть почувати і вони погодяться піти з шахт.
And as a result, one of the results of the survey showed that it's easier for people to come from one industry to another industry, to stay in a new renewable industry.
Минулого року ми розпочали перекваліфікацію чи навчання молоді нових спеціальностях. Замінили одну шахтарську на спеціальність фахівець з ремонту обслуговування сонячних панелей.
And last year we created a new program in our vocational school for the technicians for the solar panels instead of a coal mining specialty.
За один тиждень ми набрали цілу групу.
In 1 week, we got one group of people ready to study.
Тепер ми цього року хочемо ще нові спеціальності відкрити, пов'язані з альтернативними джерелами енергії.
And this year we want to create new programs for other renewable energy technologies.
Ми потребуємо конгрес-холу, ми потребуємо якісних публічних послуг, і тому спільно з ГІС ми працюємо зараз над тим, щоб зробити такий дім трансформації, в якому будуть дані функції, а також буде коворкінгами і лабораторії для успішних новаторів, учнів, молоді.
We need new public spaces, new good public services. That's why with the help of GIZ, we want to create a kind of innovation hub where there will be also co-working and also this kind of space for people to join in and work together.
Також на території з однієї шахт ми плануємо завод по переробці ТПВ, оскільки є проект і, можливо, біогаз, біометан, виготовлення також.
And at one of the coal mine sites, there are plans to create a waste treatment plant and also thinking about biogas and biomethane generation.
В своїй стратегії ми написали, що Червоноград – це індустріальне серце Львівщини, тому що ми єдині вибираємо промисловість як основу своєї території.
In our strategies, we say that Chernogorod is an industrial heart of Lviv region because we are the ones who choosing the industry as the center of our community.
Ми відкриті до інвестицій, готові допомагати, готові віддавати землю на пільгових умовах, оскільки індустріальний парк цього дозволяє.
We want and happy to receive investments. We are happy to provide all the necessary requirements and help for that to happen.
Ми раді будемо всіх бачити на нашій території і допоможіть нам зреалізувати нашу маленьку мрію. Дякую.
We would be happy to see you in Chernogorod and we will be happy to implement joint projects with you together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zalivsky. As we heard, there are a number of challenges that need to be overcome to deliver this transition in Ukraine's coal mining towns and regions. So I'd now like to invite our panel to come to the stage. Our panel consists of some of the leaders who are delivering this transition on the ground and some of the international actors working to support them. So if our panel could come up, then I'll introduce you once you're on stage. Please do come up to stage. So we're really pleased to have with us here this afternoon, Ms. Victoria Hrib. Victoria Hrib is a parliamentarian in Ukraine. She's the head of a subcommittee on energy security and resilience and has long been committed to just transition. She started a just transition group in Parliament and is behind a number of legislative initiatives to provide social support to miners. And then you've already heard from Konstantin Krynitsky, but to give him a proper introduction, Konstantin Krynitsky is the energy director at EcoAction. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the work of EcoAction. It's one of Ukraine's foremost environmental NGOs. And then next we have Dr. Imma Khenova-Shimkina. We're really pleased to have her here. Dr. Imma Khenova-Shimkina is the director of the GIZ, the German government-funded energy efficiency program in the Ukraine. And last but not least, we have Mr. Paul Hesketh. So Paul Hesketh is the technical director at ERM. ERM is a sustainable consulting firm, and they're delivering in Ukraine, in Novovolinsk, another coal area, a program funded by the UK government, which draws on the expertise that we gained in the UK and in South Wales in particular of closing mines and setting up regeneration projects to make sure that the mistakes we made aren't made elsewhere and the lessons are learned, and that through this project, we're working with Novovolinsk to come up with plans for mine closure and regeneration. I'll come and sit down over here. So, Ms. Hrib, I wanted to start by asking you how some of the challenges of the transition have changed after a Russian invasion. We've heard about the enormous damage which has been created by a Russian invasion and how the national government is working with local communities on this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for participating in this session. I think it's extraordinarily difficult now to overcome all those challenges which we have in our country because of Russian aggression, but we are doing our best. And look, we just had a winter which was very difficult for the energy infrastructure. More than 50% of our energy infrastructure was destroyed. But anyway, we survived, and I hope we'll continue doing that, rebuilding our energy system. And definitely it will be, our hope is that it will be new, modern, green energy economy. But saying that, we all understand that there are a lot of challenges in front of us. When today we are saying that we're going to get rid of coal by 2035, we need to understand that actually these coming years, this year, next year, will still need to invest in thermal power plants because we need to survive. We don't have that choice. That's why I think that we need to divide. We need to put long-term strategy objectives and short-term as well. If for the short term, we really cannot get rid now of coal, but for the long term, definitely we must. And talking about challenges which we have now and what Russian aggression really did for Ukraine, look, from one side, we can say that almost 80% of our coal mines have been closed because of war. But there is a big question if they were closed properly, because we do understand if those coal mines, they were just abandoned, that doesn't mean that we wouldn't have the ecological consequences of that. And it's a big challenge for Ukraine. It's a big challenge for international community because look, the planet is very small. And if we'll have disaster in our country, definitely it will have impact on the whole world. We need really to move quickly, at the same time to move wisely. By the way, recently, trying to be prepared for this conference, I read an article that in Berlin, they're going to face problem with the water because of coal mines closure. And it's one thing to set up those goals. It's another thing to work on details, because we must think twice before doing something. At the same time, we must move forward. If we're talking about this coming winter, we must understand that without thermal power, which is working on coal, unfortunately, again, we won't survive. And I'm repeating that one more time because I want you to understand that we need help in that area as well. But I think that definitely we need to focus also on nuclear power because it is important for our country. We have great potential. We all understand that. We need to focus on green energy alternatives. At the same time, we need maneuvering capacity. And that means that we need to think, what can we do in order to substitute the thermal power? We can talk about storages. That's what we definitely need, but it costs a lot of money. And we understand that. And I hope that we'll have investors in this area. Today, when we've been at Chatham House, we discussed, we had different, several actually, interesting panels on investment. What can help now invest in Ukraine to attract invest? And we were talking about war insurance. And I think it's critical for EBRD as well to be part of that, believe me. Second thing, it's labor market. Because with labor, we do have a lot of problems now. When we're talking about coal miners, and we are saying that we need to retrain them, definitely, because we are losing a lot of labor capacity now these days. And we all understand that we need to create such opportunities for people, for them to come back. We have around 10 million refugees. So we want them to come back, but we want also coal miners, for example, to be retrained. We need to understand how they should be retrained. It's not like we can do one thing, only energy thing, without thinking about the economy, the entire economy in the country. We need to understand what is our future. Where do we see us? So a lot of things should be done, but definitely I hope, and by the way, when Yaroslav said that we need to convince our politicians as well that green is our future, it's no need to convince us, believe me. We are convinced already, and we are doing everything possible in order to do that. That's why, by the way, I'm very grateful to GIZ and particularly Ima Klenova-Shimkina, because I remember when we just went for the conference to Berlin in 2019, it was at the beginning of my convocation. And we started to talk about just transition project in Ukraine. And she said, no, maybe it will be difficult to convince our government because they don't want to deal with coal, but it's not about dealing with coal. It's about really just transition. We need to think about those cities. We need to think about those miners and their families because we cannot just say over the sudden, you don't have a job. Yeah. We need to provide that opportunity. We need to retrain those people. We need really to help them. I want to thank again everybody for your support. For international support, because without you, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to become really prosperous, developed country. But I'm sure we will, and I hope that Ukrainian ownership of the process is also very important. We must think very thoroughly all those reforms which now will be on our agenda. We must understand that we need judicial reform as well, because for investors to come without real judicial reform, unfortunately, we won't be able to do that. We need to think about, I mentioned that, war insurance, labor market, but also currency liberalization. That is also important, because when I'm talking to the businesses and convince them, come to Ukraine, invest to Ukraine, and try to do more in green energy and others, and they're saying, okay, but think about your legislation. Corruption also, it's, we do have still on agenda, but believe me, if we want to compare with the past, I think we've done already a lot in all those areas. And I'm sure we'll continue doing that with your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fryb. You mentioned a little bit about some of the challenges of closing mines in Ukraine. And I wonder whether I could ask you, Mr. Hesketh, to tell us a little bit more about the challenges that are being faced around closing some of the mines and how the international community can support.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Thank you. I mean, closures are a multifaceted dilemma, really. That, you know, so many competing things that are required to be undertaken in a large-scale closure program, like Ukrainians are facing with their coal sites. there's technical issues, environmental issues, social issues around the communities and how those communities will be able to be employed in the future. When you look at the kind of engineering of these sites, the sites that are old, the 1950s, a lack of investment through the communist period of Ukraine, and that has imposed a condition where some of the sites are actually, some of the buildings on the sites are actually quite unsafe. Now you see when you visit some of the sites, large openings that have been opened up very crudely. Is there asbestos in the fabric of the buildings? Are the structures safe? Can they be decommissioned appropriately? What materials are underground? That's the engineering side of things. On the environment side of things, the pollution of groundwater, coal gas, stability of tips, waste materials in those tips. You've got as well that, the context the sites actually sit in, the scale of the sites, the differences you get between some sites, the location to rail and, other infrastructure that sits around those sites. An institutional memory, kind of knowledge base that people hold on the sites. Can you get access to the right information to decommission those sites in an appropriate way? Those are all very clear and evident problems that need to be dealt with. But the biggest problem and the main kind of challenge to be dealt with is actually developing an opportunity so that you've got something that everything can hang on to. You develop a vision for the site that provides a just transition, a regeneration-led just transition that gives people opportunities to partake in a new economy in the future. We all want to move to a low carbon energy, new future, but there's a reality. We all see that new future as shiny wind farms, nice solar panel plants, around the world and all that kind of stuff. But there's a reality to this, that a set of people in coal regions will be badly affected by closure and can really be left behind if money is not put into those areas, and a regeneration focus is applied to actually give opportunity that leads to just transition. And you've got to, we've heard many people already have said skills, jobs, opportunity. And that's the real challenge, is creating that vision. How do you develop a vision that enables you to kind of move forward and engage with what's going on? Part of that is looking at what are the needs, what's going on in the local area, what do people want to do? There's a part that says, what's the context of where that site sits? Is it an agricultural region, or a industrial region? What's the kind of base of the economy? Can you tap into that? And, is it close to the border? And the sites that we've been working on are 10, 12, 15 kilometers from the Polish border. So that gives us good international connectivity, or the potential for good international connectivity. And that brings a set of opportunities with it. Another part of that is building alignment with policies and showing people, bringing finance into these things where you actually look at a vision that is financeable, that people see that there's an appetite for that vision, and that enables then that project to move forward, money to be brought in, and those opportunities to be created.
Thanks for that, Mr. Hesker. It feels like there's a kind of theme coming out here about the support that needs to be provided to coal cities, to coal regions, and the role that they can play in this transition. And I wondered, Mr. Kroninsky, whether you wanted to tell us a little bit more. I know that EcoAction works very closely with a number of these towns and regions about what the key needs are and the role that they can play in the reconstruction.
Yeah, Julia, thank you. This is such a loaded question, because for me, it all boils down to the point, how do you keep talking about just transition processes and coal phase out when there is a full-scale war? How can you approach the mayors and the communities about this? And EcoAction, together with our partners who are also here in the audience, Alternativa, German Watch, we have been working with coal communities in Eastern Ukraine for the past 5 years. And Eastern Ukraine is the region where the fiercest fighting is being fought right this second. And the first meeting that we had with the mayors of coal towns from Donetsk region since the start of the invasion was in June last year. And we were very surprised, and I personally was in awe that they are still, given that the Russian occupation deepened and the fighting broadened, they were still committed to the idea of just transition. They were still saying that, yes, we need to think about the future, about the rebuilding, and it clicked for us. We understood that just transition is a part of Ukraine's green reconstruction, and just transition needs to be one of the pillars of the reconstruction of Ukraine. And why can't coal communities become a shining example of this sustainable reconstruction? Because even before the start of the full-scale invasion, the situation was very difficult in these communities because the coal mines were shutting down. They were shutting down without a proper planning process. And since the start of the invasion, the situation actually worsened in all the regions. And all the regions, they are also very different, because today we heard from Andriy Zalitsky from Chernogorod, and it's Lviv region, it's 15 kilometers from European Union. But also in the audience, we have Natalia Ivanov from Pokrovsk in Donetsk region, which is very near to the active fighting. And they are also ready and open to the idea of the planning of their reconstruction, and how to do it in a just way, and how to think about the workers, because it's understandable that the coal industry won't be the main source and industry in Donetsk region going forward. And this is also brings the question of unity of coal towns. They, from east to central and western Ukraine, they understand that there is a future in just transition. And as a result, earlier this year, 17 communities created like this unofficial working group on just transition in reconstruction process. And they drafted a concept of the role of just transition that you can also access on the long table down there as a handout material, where basically they outline the main problems and challenges they are facing and the ways how they can be overcome and how to do it in a just way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Krynitsky. And I do encourage everyone to pick up a copy of this document. It's just at the end of the room, and it's full of really interesting information. We've also heard today about the need for communities to be able to fulfill their energy requirements. And obviously, kind of a big part of the transition is improving energy efficiency so that those energy requirements can be met with less energy input. And so I wonder, Dr. Hrenovich and Kino, if you could tell us a little bit about what GIZ is doing with local communities and with others in Ukraine to help improve energy efficiency.
Thank you very much. Hello to everyone. I'm so happy to address you today because energy efficiency, it's a big part of my life. And the work in GIZ, you see, it's thank you for everyone who remind us today. I'm leading project of energy efficiency, also managing board of the energy efficiency and climate cluster. We are doing together also a project on just transition and some climate project. Everyone who was a speaker before, they said about Ukrainian difficulties. And I would like to give you some example of the positive stuff, what is going on with support of German and Swiss government, because GIZ also supported by Swiss to help local communities. First, we are going now to two directions. It's a build back greener and be stronger, as we mentioned today. And second one, Ukraine is going to have a EU membership. This is a two very important direction. What is going on and what we are, as a GIZ, as a representative of German, and in this case, Swiss government, are working together with Ukrainian municipalities, with Ukrainian government, other national institutions. We have a very complex approach. First, we help governments. Second, we help communities. Third, we develop specialists for the green recovery, for the energy efficiency. And we also supported Ukrainian businesses to be more energy efficient, to be more comparable. You heard probably the stories that our energy density in business level is very high. But now also all the world see how important is Ukrainian business, how to survive without Ukrainian metallurgy and agri sector and other sectors what we are not mentioned today, but is also important. Then we are providing also small grants and introduce energy management system to help them. And I see the real big potential to work with business, because businesses also create communities, create territories around itself. If we would like to talk about municipalities, it's a part of my life and heart. I'm so proud to see all our mayors here. And because municipalities, this is a point of the growth. And we have more than 100 municipalities with whom we are working right now and before. We even provide 100,000 euro per municipalities for the energy efficiency project. When work start, we start to focus this project a little bit to other direction to help municipalities during the preparation of the winter, during blackout. But I also was so happy that some municipalities who were not damaged, they continue energy efficiency project, because they really understand that energy efficiency, it's a fuel what we are not spend, it's the cheapest and clearest fuel. Then I would like to you ask and answer for the two questions. What municipalities can do for you as investors and what you can do for the municipalities. Our mayor, Mr. Zalewski, already said today, he can provide the land, they can provide infrastructure, they can provide support, they can also care about the schools, kindergarten for your kids who will attend this infrastructural project. And they also need some requirements from other partners. They need clear rule of law, what Victoria already said. They need normal, good, high quality energy efficient, based on energy efficient directive legislation. And here also we have a good success. Even during the wartime, our government and Ministry of Infrastructure already created 3 new legislation act what will help municipalities to survive. It's a thermal modernization strategy, also some legislation on what to do with the construction waste, because unfortunately we have a lot of after damage construction waste, and it's a huge problem for Ukraine. We need to include it as a recircular economy and think what to do with that. It's also a lot of ecological damages bring us for the challenges what need to be solved also through the legislation, because municipalities, they are the first who face this problem. And municipalities also need a lot of qualified people to implement their project, and their requalification programs, developing of curricula of different side of qualification, also awareness campaign, also inspiring new young people who will come to be a part of this process. We need army of these specialists who will do just transition, who will do energy efficiency, who will do this green bag recovery for us. And what municipalities need? They need investment, they need qualified people, they need trust. Trust to our victory, trust to our values. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Renil Vishimkina, and to all of our panelists. I think we've had a great session today. We've heard about the recommitment to a 2035 phase-out date, despite the huge damage that the Russian invasion has wrought on Ukraine's energy system. And we've heard some of the reasons behind that, the ways in which a decentralized renewable grid can help boost energy security, the fact that people see a move away from coal as being of the future, and so a planned phase out is the way to make sure that communities are getting that support to move away in an ordered way over time to 2035. We've also heard about some of the huge challenges which have been exacerbated by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But as Dr. Hrenová-Šimkina said, I end feeling like I have a huge trust in the ability of Ukraine, that all of this legislation, all of these measures have been putting in place despite the war. And so I just end by calling on all of you in the audience. We have an audience here today of people from different governments, from public banks, from private sector, to support Ukraine in this transition, and to work with the Powering Past Coal Alliance, with other partners who are looking to provide some of the expertise and some of the support which is necessary to deliver this transition. We're really proud to count Ukraine as a member of our alliance. So that's the end of the formal part of our session this afternoon. There's coffee and tea served at the other end of the room, so do take the opportunity to ask our panelists any questions that you have. Thank you all very much for coming this afternoon.
Thank you.